Hey y'all, I'm CQ, and this is Spirit Gumbo, the podcast where we stir the spiritual pot with truth, spice, and sass. In today's episode, we're talking about living in a dramatic body and what it means to navigate invisible illness. We'll start with a gumbo bite. Some bodies choose violence. Then it's story time with CQ, when my body changed the rules. After that, we'll move into a spirit side-eye. Ma'am, we had plans. And close with a reflection on compassion, capacity, and listening to the body you live in. So, grab your candle, sip your tea, and let's get into it. This ain't just talk. This is Spirit Gumbo with CQ. All right, now here's your gumbo bite for today. Something short and spicy to stir into your soul. Invisible illnesses and disabilities are chronic physical, mental, or neurological conditions that aren't immediately apparent to others. It's an umbrella term that covers a lot of different experiences. Just like we all look different, our illnesses are different. Some people live with chronic pain, some don't. Some deal with crushing fatigue or low motivation, others don't. The thing that connects all of us is the invisible part. And this is where language matters. There are phrases we need to stop using with ourselves and with other people. One of my personal pet peeves is, "Why can't you just?" I don't know, Karen. If I could, I would. But you don't look sick. I'm sorry. When did sickness get a specific look? You were fine yesterday. Yeah, and it was raining yesterday and today it's sunny. And maybe the most damaging one of all. Why can't you just deal with it? I don't know. How about you live in my body for a week and then we'll talk? All of these phrases shame and guilt people who are already living in bodies and minds that are being rebellious and dramatic enough on their own. They don't need your judgment. They don't need to prove anything. And they don't owe anyone an explanation for what you can't see. And believe me when I say, people with invisible illnesses already judge their bodies enough without needing your 2 cents. That internal self-talk, yeah, that needs to be toned down too. We live in a society that constantly asks us to prove our worth. So when our bodies get dramatic on us, we turn that pressure inward. We shame ourselves. We compare what we used to be able to do against our current limitations. And honestly, that's hard enough without outside voices piling on. We need a little more compassion and empathy for those of us whose bodies choose violence because the weather changed, we ate something we love, or we slept wrong. Not because we're dramatic, but because our systems are sensitive, exhausted, and absolutely choosing chaos on any given day. Now, take that with you and stir wisely. Story time with CQ, when my body changed the rules. Before we get into story time, I want to be clear about something. My experience with this condition is not going to look like everyone else's. Invisible illnesses show up differently in different bodies. Treatments are different. Stages are different. What I'm sharing here is just one woman's lived experience. Another quick note before we get into story time. Some of what I share may get a little graphic or uncomfortable for some listeners. If that's not something you're up for today, feel free to skip ahead or come back when you're ready. In August of 2024, I was rushed to the hospital because of a severe cyst that had become dangerous. I ended up in emergency surgery, and while that experience was traumatic, it also gave me something I'd been missing for years. What came out of that experience wasn't just recovery, but understanding. It finally gave language to years of self-consciousness and confusion about my body. Ever since I was a teenager, I've dealt with large cysts that tend to pop up when I'm stressed, when my hormones are in overdrive, or when I get too hot. And I mean too hot. Think hot summer days in Florida hot. I was diagnosed with hidradenitis suppurativa, or HS, which is the term I'll be using from here on out after my emergency surgery in 2024. In layman's terms, HS is a chronic, non-contagious inflammatory skin condition. It shows up as painful, recurring, deep-seated boils and abscesses, often in areas with sweat glands, like the armpits, the groin, or under the breasts. Over time, those cysts can cause tunneling, where areas connect under the skin, and significant scarring. It's not just painful, it's permanent. HS also isn't just a skin condition. It's an autoinflammatory disorder that affects the whole body. That inflammation can show up in the joints, hello knees, along with severe fatigue, brain fog, and a lack of motivation that can feel impossible to explain. And some flares don't just last a few days. They can stretch on for weeks, even months. Remember when I said I've been dealing with this since I was a teenager? Yeah, I was dealing with it alone. Because, well, isn't this normal? Growing up, my mom also experienced these kinds of skin eruptions, and there are indications that HS can be genetic. So, I thought this was normal. Until that surgery last year, I had never asked a doctor about what I was living with. When you see a doctor, it's because you have a problem, so I never thought much about it. Sure, in the past, I'd been to the ER a handful of times when cysts became a real problem and needed to be drained, which was something I couldn't deal with. And that happened maybe 5 or 6 times since I was a teenager. But I want to stress this again. I genuinely thought this was normal. After my surgery, I was finally referred to a dermatologist, and between seeing her and finding an HS community on Reddit, I started getting answers. For the first time, I had language for what my body had been doing all along, and a way to verbalize what it's like to live in a very dramatic body. As I talked through my medical history with my dermatologist, she mentioned that it's likely I also have another female disorder, one that can't be clearly diagnosed at my age, but is often linked to HS. Both conditions are believed to be genetic. And yes, that means there's a strong possibility that both of my girls may have one or both of them. And while part of me is dealing with guilt, the quiet, complicated guilt of realizing you may have passed something down, not through choice or negligence, but simply through biology, another part of me is deeply grateful. Because with understanding comes earlier detection, better care routines, and hopefully a stronger medical support system for them than I ever had. And I'll be honest, even after seeing the dermatologist and becoming part of an online support community, until recently, I still didn't fully understand what I had been living with. When I first received my diagnosis, the focus was mostly on treating and managing the visible physical symptoms of my illness. I finally had a name for the cysts, a reason my body behaved the way it did. But having a diagnosis didn't immediately touch the emotional side of it. I've always had large blackheads under my arms, and I've been deeply self-conscious about them for as long as I can remember. In the summertime, I like to wear sleeveless tops, but I'm always worried about grossing other people out. And yes, I know, no one is really looking at my body the way that I do. But that awareness doesn't magically erase the self-consciousness. What has changed is this. I understand now that this isn't something I could have completely prevented. There are things that I can do to help reduce the severity of flares, but these cysts and body breakouts are still going to happen. And knowing that has shifted how I talk to myself when flares happen. Don't get me wrong, I still get frustrated when I wake up in the morning with a large flare on my boob that wasn't there 8 hours earlier. I still have off days where I have to actively stop myself from saying, I hate my body. That's a battle I'll probably be fighting for a long time, but those days are getting fewer. What has changed is this. Those off days are no longer a cycle of, I hate my body, I shouldn't say that, guilt and shame, I hate my body again. There's more awareness now, more interruption, and a little more compassion than there used to be. Now, I'm not sure if it was relief, finally knowing I wasn't alone in my diagnosis, or something else, but I didn't realize there was a whole other layer to this until a few months ago. As I mentioned earlier, HS is an autoinflammatory disorder, and when HS flares, it doesn't just affect the skin. It can trigger invisible symptoms throughout the body, similar to what people experience with lupus and other autoimmune conditions. Fatigue, brain fog, deep bone-level exhaustion. And once again, things I had always thought were a me problem, a motivation problem, a willpower problem, turned out to be the part I was missing all along. Over the past several years, dealing with knee replacements and ongoing inflammation in my body, which I originally thought was just my knees, I started noticing a pattern. My body flares hardest during periods of abnormal stress. Take the Christmas holidays, for example. Schedules are off, there's more traffic, more cooking, more pressure packed into specific days. Holiday stress is normal, but the added stress to my body completely wipes me out. And that's when I started saying my body was allergic to stress. And honestly, at first, I thought the reason I became allergic to stress was because of how much stress I carried for 10 years while being a caregiver. Like I had finally hit my limit. But the truth is, I've been allergic to stress for a very long time. The difference now is that I can't mask it anymore. I'm at a place in my life where if my body decides to choose violence on any given day, then we do what the body wants, not what's on the schedule. Between season 1 and season 2 of the podcast, I decided to take a 6-week break to catch up and get a little ahead of things. Because, this is a one-woman show. I had a schedule, I had a plan, and then things didn't go according to that plan. In November, I started noticing that I was exhausted no matter how much sleep I was getting. I had no motivation. I would sit down to write my scripts, and my mind would go completely blank. I'd be in conversations, and words just wouldn't come. These are all things I've dealt with before, things I'd always managed to push through. But this time, I couldn't just bulldoze my way through it. And then, all of a sudden, it was the beginning of December, season 2 was starting, and the holidays were right there. I decided I wasn't going to take a break for the holidays since I'd already taken time off between seasons. I told myself I'd just do shorter episodes and get back into the swing of things after the holidays. And while I was being gentler with myself when I could, I still couldn't get motivated. I was still exhausted. And then, right after the holidays, right when I was supposed to be getting back into my regular routine, I completely crashed. My body had had enough. That's when I finally sat down and really started taking stock of what was going on with this drama queen I call my body. First, I noticed that my skin had been flaring repeatedly for months. Normally, I'll have a flare, things settle down, and I don't deal with another one for a while, sometimes months at a time. But that wasn't what was happening. Second, I went back and did more research on what an autoinflammatory illness actually is. And that's when the light bulb went off. My body, not just my skin, but my entire body had been flaring for months. No wonder I was exhausted. No wonder I couldn't find motivation. After that realization, I didn't really have a choice. I needed to take another extended break from the podcast. This wasn't, oh, I just need to recover from the holidays. This was, I need to give myself the space to let my body heal. If you've never experienced this kind of tired, or if you struggle to describe it to other people, I've got you. There's something called spoon theory that helps explain it. When you're living with this type of illness, you wake up each day with a limited number of spoons, and that number can change daily. For the sake of example, let's say someone without chronic illness wakes up with 10 spoons a day. You spend those spoons on tasks. Taking a shower costs a spoon. Making 3 meals a day costs a spoon. Running errands costs a spoon. For most people, those spoons last through the whole day. But for some of us, we wake up with 5 spoons one day, 3 spoons the next, and maybe 8 spoons on a good day. And that means we have to make decisions differently. On a 3-spoon day, taking a shower and going to the grocery store just isn't going to happen. On an 8-spoon day, sure, as long as there aren't any surprises. Now, for some of you, especially those of you who play video games, this might be an easier way to understand it. In a lot of games, you have a health bar and a stamina bar. For most people, when the game starts, both of those bars are sitting at 100%. But for some of us, that's not the case. Our bars might start at 80% or 30%, depending on the day, and we still have to play the game. In my household, we're all gamers, so on days when I'm struggling, I'll say things like, my stamina is low today, or I'm running out of spoons. It's my way of explaining what's going on without having to explain everything. I will say this, once the realization hit me that there was more to my illness than I had first processed, it hit me like a truck. I had to grieve again. I had to grieve my body and the things I thought I was working towards. My timeline looked like this. August 2024, emergency surgery. November 2024, right knee replacement. March 2025, left knee replacement. I honestly thought, and yeah, I can laugh now, that once my knees were working properly, my body would heal and life would just move on. Nope. Nah. Turns out, we're dealing with HS for the long haul. I cried. I screamed. I was deeply frustrated for a few days. And then, once I was able to actually process it, I accepted it. It wasn't pretty, but it was real, and it's where I am. Right now, that means making changes to manage my stress, and that starts with taking an honest look at what my days actually look like. I'm already making changes to how the podcast will look after this season, and I may have to make some adjustments sooner than planned though I'm hoping not to. I'm giving myself permission to rest on days when I don't have enough spoons for tasks as simple as writing an episode. I'm giving myself permission to be gentle with myself instead of bulldozing through things. Because sure, I could push through, but then I risk a flare later. And finally, I'm giving myself permission to learn how to love this dramatic chaos gremlin I live in. Some days she's gentle, and some days she chooses chaos. But on all of her days, she's held with compassion and understanding. During our gumbo bite, we talked about how invisible illnesses don't look the same. Different symptoms, different bodies, different treatments, all different experiences. What can't be different is the compassion, empathy, and understanding we offer to people living with things others can't see. Whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, it's draining. And over time, it can leave people feeling like no one really understands what they're carrying. I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. If any part of my story resonated with you, please know that I see you, I understand, and I will walk alongside you for as long as you need. All right, now it's time for a spirit side-eye, because some of y'all are out here playing with energy like karma won't slap you in the back of the head. This spirit side-eye is for our bodies that have to get dramatic just to get our attention. Yeah, I said it. For the ones that wake up and choose violence for absolutely no reason. For the bodies that flare at 3 a.m. like, surprise, bitch, I told you I needed a break. Ma'am, we had plans. We talked about this. But here's the thing. We're not side-eyeing with hate. We're side-eyeing with normality and with love. Like, I know you. I live here. Some days you're cooperative, and some days you're feral. And on the feral days, we cancel plans, we lower expectations, we rest without guilt, because fighting our bodies has never made them behave better. So yes, spirit side-eye to the dramatic bodies, the drama queen bodies that roll up, ready to swing, because we forgot to treat them like the delicate little flowers they are, damn it. But also a nod of respect, because they're not trying to ruin our lives. They're trying to get our attention. That was your spirit side-eye. Now, go sage your space and mind your magical business. I know this episode was a little heavy. Believe me, my body tried to go feral on me several times while scripting this episode, but I think it's important for us to remember that we are not alone. If your body feels unpredictable, loud, or hard to live in some days, remember this: you're not broken. You're just living in a body that sometimes chooses chaos. And as long as you're listening, you're learning. That's the best thing you can do with the body you have. May you meet yourself with a little more compassion, a little less shame and guilt, and a whole lot of grace, especially on the days when your body chooses to be a dramatic drama queen. That's it for today's brew. If something stirred your soul, stirred your sass, or made you side-eye your life choices in the best possible way, pass it on, and don't forget to follow, rate, and share your thoughts on any of our socials. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Spirit Gumbo. In our next episode, we're talking about survival language, the difference between want and need, and what shifts when we pause and reframe the words we use. Until next time, this ain't just talk. This is Spirit Gumbo with CQ.